Welcome back to DataPower Gateway training. Today in this video we are going to see a simple exercise of how we can use XML firewall in DataPower. So before we are going to continue this topic, we need to have some initial setup in SOAP UI. So basically normally all the DataPower services can be invoked using the curl uh, option, which is the command line program, but I don't want to use that one. So I would like to use the SOAP UI tool, which is really helpful for you guys when you trying to develop the application firewall using DataPower, and you can able to test that easily in SOAP UI. If you are testing, for example, if you are a QA from perspective, if you want to do a testing, you can able to do the same thing from SOAP UI. So let's set up first something on the SOAP UI. Let me see. First, I'm trying to see some WSDL to create a project in SOAP UI. So go to google.com and just type whether web service WSDL, something like that. So click on the I normally used to click like something called something called the other web service. So I'm trying to see which one I normally used. Yes, this one, WSF. Yeah. So copy this WSDL, or if you want, you can save this WSDL as well. So for what I can do it for you, I can go back so that I can save this. I can upload it in the video so that you can download from that video section. So and go save link as, and it's saving as HTML. No, we need a visual file. So that's okay. You just copy this visual file and go open SOAP UI. Sorry, the first time it's loading, it takes some time. So on the project, right click the project, create a new SOAP project, and the visual text area, just paste the URL. Then it should import all the things. So this is basically some dummy web service. You can click the second one, get city weather by zip. So basically by providing some zip code, you can able to retrieve some city informations. So I'm opening that request. So this is the actual web service URL, wsf.cdyne.com/weather/weather.asmx. It's a web service URL. So here just remove the question mark and type the zip code of US zip code, because this dummy web service only supports the US zip code. It does not support any Canada or any other country's zip codes. So type and hit the button. So it's actually calling the backend web service, and it's telling my area, what's my state, what's my city, and what's my weather station city, and how its temperature looks like. It's not sunny, it's a midnight now, it's a very cold. It's 72, it's saying the temperature, but it's not 72. So that I said it's a dummy of service. It's actually having um, some junk or mock information from database, so it's going and retrieve something from the database. So but we can utilize this service for our tutorial and for our exercise. If you pass the invalid zip code, you see that a response. It's saying that city could not be found in weather data. So that's what it's telling. Um, okay. So this is the actually calling the weather web service, dummy weather web service provided by the public to use it, and we can able to utilize this weather web service. So now let's begin with our data power XML firewall, simple XML, very basic simple XML firewall. I am going to create a new firewall. First log in to your DataPower using your credentials with your domain, and so as I told you earlier, don't do any exercise on the default domain. Default domain is only for the administrative functionality. So go to the domain specific to you or assigned to you. I am going to this domain POC, and in this POC domain I am going to create a simple XML firewall, and I am going to call it as I am going to create a new firewall. Let's select this as the pass-through. So what does pass-through meaning is, um, let's change this later, but pass-through means whatever the request you're going to hit the data power, it's going to send the response back. So none of the policies will be executed. So click pass-through and click next. It will ask you to provide the firewall name. So you can say simple XML firewall, something like that, and click next. It will ask you what is the firewall type, static, backend, or loopback. What is loopback means? If you really don't have any backend services, or you don't have any backend services to call, then if you select loopback to test something on DataPower, then DataPower will act as a server. It will return the response whatever you're passing to it. But as of now, we know the static backend. What is the server and what is the IP of the server and what is the port we need to call for the to call this weather web service. So give the static backend and give next. It will ask you the static backend details. So go to SOAP UI and just copy the server name alone, the host name, which is wsf.cdyne.com. So come back here and paste it here, and server port just make it 80, and we really don't there it's not, we know it's not a HTTPS service, it's HTTP, so let it be 10 off the SSL and click next. It will ask you the device IP address. If you put 0.0.0.0, which means any port, we have a 4 LAN port on this virtual data power gateway appliance. So any LAN port, this service can be exposed. So the better approach is to restrict the port for the specific IP address. So select the alias. So we have already created some alias. I told you. So select the inbound, which is inbound means this particular IP will accept all incoming traffic to the data power. So if you're trying to hit with other IP, it won't accept it. So click apply the inbound. Let it leave the device port as default. It's assigning the next available immediate available port for your service, and we are not going to make any secure SSL firewall here, so turn it off here. Give next. Provide commit. Done. So save config. Again go to your XML firewall and open the firewall you just created. So this is the firewall we just created. Open it. So if you see, this is the XML firewall we have created. There is lot of things, advanced tabs, Telsit Faram and everything. We will look into the detailed topic. And the XML manager we are using default. We will look into this later. And the static backend, we have a remote host and remote port. And there is no backend SSL. The response type is pass through. And make the request type is SOAP, because we are accepting only the SOAP message. If you This is the processing policy, as I told you from the introduction data power class. You can able to see the processing policy and rules and actions. So this is has basically it has the two rules, one policy, which is the XML firewall policy. It has the rule, which is request rule. Request rule is going to ask client to server, which means it's coming from the client. The SOAP is the client and coming to server, which is the data power server. So once the request hits on the data power, what are the rules you want to execute? You can able to configure all the rules here. So this is the response, which means server to client, which is the actual backend. To data power is the client. So whenever the response coming from data power to client, what are the actions and transformations and so encryption, decryption, whatever you want to implement, you can able to do it here. So as of now, we will leave this as a default. Don't touch anything because it's a very simple XML firewall. We have a static backend. So just we change the request type as the SOAP here. Then go and click apply. So once you applied it, it's not changed. Just click save config. So now let's try to invoke this data power URL. So what is the inbound local IP address? I know my inbound IP address is like is this one 202. So I am going to SOAP UI. I am going to click the drop down box, click add a new endpoint. I am going to replace the actual port name with the data power, the host, inbound host public IP address, not the local IP address, because I'm hitting through internet. The port we assigned is 2051 for this firewall. So make sure the remaining things remains same. I will tell you why, how we can able to change it in future. But as of now, leave it as it is, the URI, which match the actual endpoint. So if you click now, your request is hitting the data power, and from the data power, it hitting the backend service. and from the backend service your data power getting the response, and from the data power the SOAP is getting the response. How you can make sure that that's exact flow is happening? So to make sure that, go to data power. Here you can see the option called SOAP probe. Click that one and enable probe. Close. Go and hit something else now. For example, I will change the zip code to 222 and hitting that, so it's coming back, and go to the probe window and refresh it. So you can see the inbound URL is 85.190.181.202, which is the URL we configured in the SOAP UI. The outbound URL is the actual web service URL. So it's coming from inbound and going to outbound. You can click the mirror icon. You can able to see that this is the request going to the outbound, but this is not showing you the response. This is only showing the request. So this way we can able to validate whether our inbound is actually calling the outbound. It's actually calling. So this is the example of simple XML firewall in DataPower, how we can able to create a DataPower and simple XML firewall. Thank you for your time to attending this session. I will connect with you later on different topics. Thank you for your time today.